And everyone. I just wanted to jump on tonight as I had promised you. Um, Today, as I was home, God had been dealing with me with a message about being tired of running. So what I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to allow Facebook to draw me in a audience before we get started. So I'm just gonna give a little time for Facebook to draw in the audience. Right now, you could go ahead and start to share the video, tag the video. If there's anyone under the sound of my voice, go ahead and start tagging and sharing the video out. So I'll wait until Facebook draws me an audience in. Thank you. Good evening, everybody who's under the sound of my voice. I would just like to welcome you in. As I had promised you on Monday, I was gonna jump in one of these days just to do this live that God had put on my heart. And I am so grateful that each and every one of you who joins in is on here. Latanya, thank you so much for joining in with me on tonight. Tamika, thank you so much for joining in with me on tonight. I appreciate you all so much. At this time, if you could go ahead and tag someone in the video just to let them know that I am on tonight. I'm going to allow Facebook a little time to go ahead and alert people that I am on tonight. I think and I believe that this message is going to be so powerful. On tonight. We also have a YouTube channel that you can watch it on. It's under Real Talk with Frank and Vanessa. Tamika, thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate you tagging all the people in. Shelly, thank you so much for being on here with me tonight. Nisi, thank you so much for being on here with me tonight. I am, as I said, gonna allow Facebook to draw me in an audience because I believe that this message is going to be so impactful on tonight. This is something that God had been dealing with me with, and you all notice the title says, I'm so tired of running from you. And I know that may get you a little bit curious, and you may ask the question, what is she talking about? But I'm gonna get into it and I'm gonna break it down for you. Um, while we're like I said, while we're allowing Facebook to draw us in an audience, I'm just gonna give it a little minute before I start. Like I said, I think a lot of young people, so if you could bring as many young people in as you can, I think this will be a very powerful message for them to hear on tonight. um at the point where you just say, I'm tired of running from you. And so right now, like I said, I'm gonna allow Facebook to draw me in an audience. Once it draws me in the audience, I promise y'all I'm gonna go ahead and start to break this down to y'all. So just give me 1 minute and then I'll start. Thank you, each and every person who's under the sound of my voice. I do truly appreciate you all jumping in. Latanya, I do appreciate you all jumping in with us on tonight. Like I said, Latanya, Tamika, Shelly, Nisi, I see you on here, and I appreciate each and every one of you so much. And I know that a lot of people wasn't aware that I was coming on tonight because I kind of just popped up like I told y'all I was gonna do. But I do truly believe that on tonight, this is gonna be It's going to be a good topic. It's really something to talk about. DeWitt, thank you so much for joining in with us on tonight. I'm glad that you decided to join in with us on tonight. Appreciate you so much. Once again, like I said, we do have a YouTube channel. If you want to jump in on the YouTube channel, I did share it out. I'm going to tag a few more people in, and then I promise y'all, I'm going to go ahead and get to this message because I don't want to hold you all. But I most of all do appreciate each and every one of you all who joined in with me. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was trying to tag some people in. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get started with this live on tonight. Um, there's a subject up here that says, I'm so tired of running from you. Um, as I was thinking about this, it's like sometimes in life you're running from something that's not going to disappear. And as God began to deal with me and as God began to tell me about this topic, God wanted me to tell his people, whatever it is that you're running from, it's not going to go away. No matter how you try to avoid it, no matter how you try to go around it, no matter how you try to drink it away, drug it away, sleep it away, it's not going anywhere until you face it head on. So the topic I came up with, it was another part that said, it says, I'm so tired of running from you. But the second part to it, it said, we might as well just fight and get it over with. That was powerful. So as I began thinking about this topic as God had given it to me, ZZ, thank you so much for joining in. Charlene, thank you so much for joining in. As I began thinking about this topic that God had given to me, that I'm tired of running from you. We might as well just fight. That was deep because we all face situations in our life, whether it's trauma, whether it's pain, whether it's hurt, whether you're battling with something physically, mentally, or spiritually. God began to show me, until you stand up and fight, it's not going anywhere. And so as I was talking to God, I began to look back over my life. And as I began to look back over my life, I began to look at things that I battled with. And I can be honest, in this lifetime, I have ran away from some things. Hey, Sandra Hankey, thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate you so much. I ran from some things in my life, but guess what? I'm going to tell you this. Just because I ran don't mean they went away. Let's take a bully, for instance. A bully will bully you for the rest of your life until you decide to stand up to it. So sometimes you have to just say, I'm so tired of running from you. We might as well just fight and get this thing over with. Because God is saying, whatever you're running from is stopping you from getting to your purpose and your plan that God has for you. That was deep. I start to look at how Goliath, he taunted the Philistines. He taunted them to the point where everybody, Israel, they were scared to fight this giant. And if we can be real in our lives, there's some things that's taunting us. It could be trauma, depression, frustration, aggravation. It could be illness. It could be spiritually, mentally. And we find ourselves running from it. But God says, listen, I want you to stop running and just fight. But you saying, God, if I fight, what if I lose? God says the fight is already fixed. And you are one of the opponents in the ring. But God, what if I can't fight with what's fighting me? What if I can't handle what's challenging me? God said the fight is already fixed. And you one of the opponents that's in the ring. You know, sometimes, let's take it back old school. You know how when somebody would bully you and you would run up in that house and your mama or father would tell you, if you don't get your butt back out there and fight, you're going to have to deal with me. God says, you're not running no more. God says, and I'm not asking you, do you want to fight? I'm telling you, you gonna fight. He said, it's a fixed fight and you one of the opponents. So you say, God, I'm not equipped right now to fight what's before me. God, I got problems coming from one end to another end. I got trials and tribulations that's knocking at my door. I got court case after court case and they stacking up on me. I got depression trying to lay down with me. I got frustration getting up with me. God, I cannot fight anymore. God said, the fight is fixed. And you one of the opponents in the ring. So you say, God, I got an illness up against me. God, I have no more energy. I have no more strength. This trauma that I've been carrying in my life, it keeps following me. God, I have no more energy for myself. God says, I'm so tired of you running. He says, you gonna have to stand up and fight. And we find ourselves, we talking to God and we telling God all the reasons why we can't fight. But God is saying, I already fixed the fight. You have no other choice. And you going to be one of the opponents that's in the ring. What God is trying to tell me and what he's trying to tell you all is once you step in the ring, baby, it's on. We told you on Monday, God says the battle is not yours, it's mine. God says sometimes I put you in the ring just so I can fight the fight for you. But you saying, God, but you put me in a ring and there is an opponent. And I understand that. But God is saying, you're not running no more. God says, you tired of running and I'm tired of you running. He says, you might as well fight and get it over with. So as I was looking at this message, I began to look at David. The Philistines, all of them were scared to fight this giant. Now ask yourself, what giant been standing in your face that you scared to fight? And every time this giant appears, because he does appear day by day, the Bible tells you, you resist the devil and he shall flee. So God tells you, if you don't resist the devil, he ain't going nowhere. Only way he moves if you resist him. So you ask God, and I'm looking in the ring, and God said that the fight is fixed and you might as well just fight. So you say, God, I can't fight. So you say, God, what do you want me to do? And God is saying, get in the ring. Get it over with. Get in the ring and just get it over with. Good evening, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in with us on tonight. So you got the Philistines. They got this giant. He in their life, just like some issues are in our life. And God is saying, fight. He says, I'm putting you in a ring. You don't have no other choice. He says, because I see what these things are doing to you, and you keep running away from them every time they appear. But you say, God, I'm scared. And I get it. Thing in your life that's taunting you, you have a right to be scared of. But God says, I give you a pass the first time because you scared. He says, the second time, I advise you to get my word. Thank you, Jeffrey, so much. I appreciate you. He says, the third time, you're going to have to get in the ring. What are you saying? God said the fight is fixed. He says, and you have to get in the ring and you have to fight. And I'm looking at the children of Israel, and you got Saul. Everybody's scared of this giant. What's in your life that you're scared of? That's been running you around half of your life? What trauma in your life are you scared of that's been running you around all of your life? What frustration, aggravation, stress, headaches have you been allowed that has been running you around all your life? God says, I'm tired of you running. He says, get in the ring. He says, you gonna fight. And I'm telling you, you gonna be the opponent in the ring. Ain't no way around this. Goliath not going nowhere because you run. It's just like that bully. Remember, you can run, but you can't hide. God says you're not hiding no more. He says what you're going to do is you're going to deal with the things that's dealing with you. And I said, wow, God. God says, I want you to get up. He says, I want you to put on the full armor of God. He says, I want you to clean yourself up. He says, I want you to put your boxing gloves on. He says, I want you to be ready to fight. He says, but keep the word hidden in your heart. He says, because all these components that I'm going to give you, the fight is already fixed, but you got to get in the ring. What are you talking about? I'm talking about when this giant keeps standing at your door. So what they said was this giant, he had everybody scared. But David said, I'm ready to get in the ring. Notice David didn't get in the ring without getting orders from God, because David was strategic when he got in the ring. He got in the ring with something. And guess what? He got in the ring with God and God's word, knowing that I'm in the ring now and I got to fight. So the giant is there. And David is too. Get in the ring. You can't run no more. God is saying, I want you to just get in the ring. He says, and once you get in the ring, things gonna get easy. He says, guess what? They gonna get easy. I understand you scared of this giant that's in this ring with you. It's just like when Mike Tyson get in the ring with one of his opponents. Normally, the opponent probably is scared of Mike Tyson, but because I've gotten up and told everybody that there's gonna be a fight, God says, listen, tell whatever is taunting you that there's about to be a fight. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to be like Mike Tyson. When I get in this ring, something is about to go down. I understand I might get knocked down a couple of times, but I promise you, every time I get knocked down, I'm getting back up. I'm not running from you no more. Guess what? I might as well fight you and get this thing over with, because if I don't fight you, you're going to continue to fight me, and I don't see a way around you removing you out of my way. So you got these giants that's standing in front of you. And as God began to show me, he says, just get in the ring. Don't ask me how it's going to happen. Just get in the ring. God says 9 times out of 10, he says, they most scared of you than you scared of them. God says, just get in the ring. So I begin to ask God, I says, God, I believe a lot of people are wrestling with this and they are wrestling with that. Some people are facing court cases. Some people are facing trauma that they've been going through since they was a little kid. Some people are aggravated and upset. Some people are frustrated. Some people are going through illnesses. I said, God, they tired. Your people are tired. He says, well, if you're tired and if they're tired, tell them stop running. Fight and get it over with. So I said, wow, God, that's deep. Now remember when David, he fought that giant. Let me show you how it was. David actually didn't know that him fighting the giant for the children of Israel was going to cause him problems. And so what David does is David strategically goes to that giant. And when he strategically goes to that giant, he goes with a slingshot, and I think it's 3 rocks in his hand. And as he goes to that giant, what he does is he pulls that slingshot back and knocks that giant down. Let me tell you something. Once you pull out the word of God on those things that's hunting you, God says they gotta go. Resist the devil. Colleen, thank you so much for joining in. And he said he will flee. But I want to tell you all on tonight and encourage you all on tonight. Stop running. Stop running. God says you might as well fight and get it over with. You know, I'm just going to keep it real. I see a lot of people, they going through a lot in life. And in order to avoid what you're going through in life, sometimes you want to self-medicate yourself. Even now, if you go to the doctors and you tell them you got anxiety or you're dealing with stress, what they do is they prescribe you a prescription that numbs your brain so you don't have to think about what is going on in your life. And what it does is it takes away your emotions. So what trauma and stuff does to us, it wants to emotionally hurt us. But God is saying, stop running and just fight. You might as well get it over with because it ain't going nowhere. And as I look at people wrestling with stuff, and I keep saying, you know, when God gave me this message, it was deep. Because I watch a person, they run every day. And what they do is while they running, they self-medicate themselves. And I keep saying, when the high comes down, you still got the issues that's going on in your life. And they keep running some more. And they self-medicate some more. And I keep saying, every day, the issue is not going anywhere until you get in the ring and you fight. And they saying, but you don't understand, everything was going good. Thank you, Rachel. Everything was going good for me in my life. And I keep telling them, but until you stand up and fight and get in the ring with your issues, they not going anywhere. And I look every day and you trying to escape your Goliath. And Goliath is this great big giant that keeps standing face to face with you every day on a daily basis and asking you, where did you think you were going? But God is saying to tell his people on tonight, you tired of running and you gon' get in the ring and you gon' fight. He says the fight is fixed. He said that's the problem. You don't realize that I'm such a God and that I love you so much. He says the fight is already fixed and you gon' win. He says, but you got to be still. Rachel, thank you. You got to be still and know that I'm God all by myself. So I look at David. Yeah, I'm going to show you how trials and tribulations come. David has done a great thing. He's got in the ring with this giant who was taunting these people, and David defeats this giant that was taunting these people, David didn't have a problem until he got in the ring with this giant. But God is still faithful all by himself. So what David does is the person that he helped with the giant turns around and starts to hate David. But I'm going to tell you something. Stay in the ring, because God says, listen, I'm not going to leave you, or I'm not going to forsake you. Matter of fact, he says, no weapon that formed against you shall prosper. So what happens is Saul starts to get jealous because David defeated the giant, and now David begins to have problems in Saul's house. I'm going to tell you. So David is in Saul's house. Saul plans to kill him. David doesn't face Saul. What he does is David says, listen, he says, I love you, so I'm going to leave your house. I'm going to get on up out of here. You planning to kill me. God says, you can't keep running from something that's trying to kill you, because I'm going to walk y'all all the way through the story. David ran from Saul. Yes, he did. He got up out that man's house because Saul was planning on killing him. I'm telling you, at some point, you're going to have to get in the ring and fight, because what you running from, I promise you, I'm going to show you what you running from. It's not going to stop chasing you, but guess what? You can run, but you can't hide. What you running from and hiding from going to find you. Why I say that? David ran. David ran now to the Philistine camp, because David doesn't want to deal with Saul. So what David does is he runs and he gets his butt in a cage and he hides. But let me, y'all, I'm trying to make it make sense. Stop running from the thing that's taunting you. God says you might as well stand up and fight, because it ain't going nowhere. So guess what? David ran from Saul. Saul didn't go nowhere. Let me show you how God will make you fight. David is in this cage, and Saul comes in this cage. What happened when you done hid for so long, and that trauma, that depression, that stress, that frustration, that relationship, that job, that illness? What happened when you done hid for so long? What happened when it comes in the cage with you? Even though Saul was just as shocked as David was, because Saul didn't expect David to be in that cave, and David didn't expect Saul to come in that cave. So now that Saul has stumbled upon David, David is pretty shocked, because you're the last person I expect to see. I thought I had ran so far that you would never find me. That's what I'm talking about. I'm so tired of running from you. And I can imagine seeing David. David says, listen, I left your house. I left you alone. You didn't want me there. You planned on killing me. I even ran to the enemy's camp to get away from you. Now that I'm in the enemy's camp, I took myself and put myself in a cave, and my problems seem to have found me. God is saying, you can run, but you can't hide. I want to encourage you all on tonight. Stop running and just get in the ring. God said the fight is already fixed. Let me tell you something. When Saul got in that cave, imagine the thing you've been running from, them found you accidentally, but on purpose, because God knew that Saul was going to come in that cage with David. Guess why? Because David was running. You can run, but you can't hide. God says you might as well stop running and just fight and get it over with. So when Saul gets in that cage, David said he could have killed him. I could kill you. I've been running from you for so long, and now guess what? You done ran up on me. See, these things keep running up on you. You gonna have to do like David and say, listen. I done ran as far as I can go. I can't go no further. I done hit a brick wall. I done went to the lowest point in my life. Now I'm in a cave hiding from you, and you still some kind of way seem to find me. God says the fight is fixed. You gonna be one of the opponents in the ring, so you might as well fight. Mike Tyson ain't never went to a fight and just stood there. even though he lost fights, he never just stood there. Mike Tyson said, I challenged you to a fight, and that's what I'm gonna do. Muhammad Ali ain't never went to a fight and just stood there. I challenged my opponent to a fight, and that's what I'm gonna do. So guess what? Let me show you how it ain't as hard as you think. So David got Saul, and he in the cave with him. David thinks in his mind, I could kill you. Taz, thank you so much for joining in. Paris, thank you so much for joining in. I could kill you, but I wouldn't do honor to God. He says, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you that I'm not scared of you. See, I ran from you while I was in your house, but I can't run no more. So the story says that David used his sword and cut off a piece of Saul's garment. When you cut off what's taunting you and show you that I done ran as much as I can, I'm not running no more, but I'm going to stand up to you and show you that I'm about to cut something off of you. Guess what? God said the fight is already fixed and you gonna be the opponent in the ring. See, God says what David ran from, it wasn't that hard to get a piece of. God says you was running, but then Saul ran up on you. We would say it was an accident that Saul found David, but God says no, it was set. That was set. That had to happen. So as I begin to just look at this passage, I want to tell some of y'all, if it keep running up on you, cut it down. If it keep taunting you, do something about it. If it keeps stressing and depressing you, use God's word. Because as we can see, I'm going to tell you, you can run all you want. It ain't going nowhere. The doctor give you a bad doctor report. Because you don't go back to the doctor don't mean the condition disappears. You might, if you face it and go back to the doctor and tell God, you said by my stripes, by your stripes, I am healed. You go back to the doctor say, I don't even find anything that I told you. You gonna turn around and say, look at God. It wasn't as hard as I thought. And that's what I'm trying to delay the message on tonight, that it's not as hard as you thought. Stop running. You got to go to court. Go to court. But take God with you. Tell God, say, God, you know the case. If don't nobody else know the case. God, you know all about me because you said you knew me before you formed me in my mother's womb. So God, I know that I'm taking you. You a way maker, miracle worker, and a promise keeper. I'm taking you in the courtroom with me. I understand that the odds are set against me, but I can't keep running because if I run, they're going to put a warrant out for my arrest. So I might as well get in the ring and let the judge make a decision. But I know that the judge does not have the final say so over my life. God has the final say so over my life. Yeah, I heard the doctor's report and I understand what they said. If I run, the condition still stands. But if I go back to hear what God has done, because I know God is a miracle worker, and when I go back to the doctor, they say your results all say all good. Because I know that when I went in there, I took God who says I am a healer, and by my son's stripes, you are healed. I understand that depression has a hold on you, but God says if you keep renewing your mind on a daily basis, he says, listen, old things are passed away. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Plus, God says I'm a healer. So if depression is taunting your mind, God says I can heal the mind because I created the body. God says, don't leave me out. He says, get in the ring and just fight depression, because tell depression that I got the healer on my side, that I got the way maker on my side, because God says I created the body, so I know how to deal with the body. And I thank God on tonight. A lot of people lost. God says, I'm about to find you. He says, I understand you built a cave for your life. And you hiding in it because you got, and guess what? Sometimes we build this cave for our life and we push a rock to the door because we got problem after problem after problem, but they steady knocking. They telling you, come on out, come on out. You can run, but you can't hide. And you steady hiding, and they steady knocking. But God says the more they knock, the more the rock is coming away from the door. God says what's gonna happen is because you hiding so hard, coincidentally, they gonna come in there with you. God says, and that's your chance to cut them down. God is telling us on tonight, y'all. He says, stop running from what's taunting you, whether it's something that happened in your childhood. God said, get in the ring and fight. It can only fight you because you running. And I just want to encourage each and every person on tonight. Matter of fact, I thank each and every one of you all who on tonight, stop running. Tell your problems, I'm so tired of running from you. I'm just going to get in the ring and fight. Matter of fact, I don't have no other choice. Now you see how when the people used to bully you on the block, your parents tell you, if you don't get your butt back out there and fight, I'm going to fight you. God says, listen, you don't want to fight me. He says, so get your butt in that ring and you going to stand there and you going to be still and know that I'm God. You going to know that the battle is not yours. The battle is mine, but you can't keep running and hiding behind me. God says, what you going to do is you going to deal with it just like it's dealing with you. God said, it's not as easy. It's not as hard as you think. He said, as a matter of fact, the fight, because it's fixed, it's easy. He said, just get in the ring. So I just want to thank you all on tonight for joining in with me on this podcast. I just believe God is speaking to us. And I just believe God's word is true. He says, I'm not telling you something that's going out void, that's going out and coming back to me void. God says, I'm not bouncing checks around here. God says, and when I said no weapon that formed against you shall prosper, God says, I mean no weapon that forms against you shall prosper. God says, what we gonna do is when you get in the ring, he says, I'm gonna shift some things. God says, because your opponent is so used to you running around. See, sometimes, let me tell you something. You can get in that ring and do the same thing you was doing before you came in the ring and keep running. God said, we going to shift some things. This time, you not running around. You going to stand in your corner. And what you going to do is when God says, when I says go, he says, you going out there and you going to swing. You going to do just like David. When you come up out of that corner, you going to have a rock and a slingshot in your hand, and everything that's been taunting you, God says, I want you to start shooting that rock. He says, and when you pull it back, you make sure you launch it back far enough, because one shot gonna knock everything down. God said, this is a one shot stop. What you gonna do? Gonna knock a lot of things down. So I just want to encourage each and every person on tonight. I thank you and I appreciate each and every one of you all for getting on here with me tonight. God says, listen, he says, I'm tired of you running. And he says, I hear you saying, I'm so tired of running from this and I'm so tired of running from that. He says, what you gonna do is, he said, you gonna say, I might as well fight and just get it over with. You know, sometimes I'm just laughing because a bully be bullying you real bad. You don't want to fight that bully because you done heard how they fight and what they did to the last person that they fought, until they make you fight them, because they not going nowhere. As long as they know you scared, they gonna make you fight them. And once they make you fight them and you get in there and you start swinging and you start knocking things down and you really start moving some stuff out your way, because guess what? They standing in your way, and God is saying you need to clear your path because they blocking your purpose, your plan, and your destiny. Once you get in that ring, I promise, it happened to me as a kid. I was scared as I don't know what. And they kept bullying me and they kept telling me what was going to happen on a day-to-day basis. And what happened was I was so scared. I started going through the alley because I didn't want them to see me. And I went through the alley this one particular morning. Me and my cousin, my grandma had sent us to the store. We were so scared, y'all. And as my grandma sent us to the store, we snuck through the alley because they had already told us, we gonna tear y'all butt up if we see y'all. And I went through the alley and we get to the middle of the alley. and they standing right there. This 8 o'clock in the morning. Y'all remember that store, Carmela? We looking like, how did y'all know that we had went through that alley and it's 8 o'clock in the morning? We thinking they sleep. So we gonna try to go to the store early to get my grandma stuff. So y'all, my grandma, she comes down the alley. I don't even know how she knew that they was out there waiting on us. But my grandma, she comes down out there and she says, "What y'all doing?" And we thinking, good, mama out here, she finna take us back home. She gonna say we ain't gotta go to that store. My grandma say, "Y'all get out their way. Let them go to that store and get my bacon." I'm looking at her like, don't you know they finna beat the mess out of us? It's 2 of us, but it's about 5 of them. I say, don't you know they finna beat the mess out of us? And she made us keep going to that store. Y'all, we was scared. I ain't gonna even tell no story. Yes, we was. We was scared. So we kept on going. We went on to the store. And they didn't let us go no further. If y'all remember, right there on the corner of Fulton and Laramie, it was a cleaners right there. They had a little cleaners right there. That's as far as they would let us go. They said, listen, you gonna fight today. I'm looking for grandma to see if she coming again to intervene. Grandma ain't showed up nowhere. At that point, I had to fight. I ain't had no other choice. We had ran for so long. We was running because we taking alleyways and gangways and every other way. They said, you might as well fight and get this over with. And I said, y'all, I ain't have a choice to say nothing because they already had told me how it was going to go and what was going down. It's either me get whooped or me whoop them. And there was so many of them. And they told me, they said, you got to fight 2 people. I say, 2 people. Anyway, long story short, baby, we fought in that little cleaner because it was on a Sunday. And you know how the cleaners was closed and they had that little gate around the windows. We got in there and we fought. We fought. They said you had to fight, so I fought. And y'all, then I'm trying to wonder how I ever got in the fight, y'all. Sometimes you gonna have to fight and it ain't even your fight, but because the fight really wasn't for me. But anyway, they told me they was gonna fight me and they was gonna fight her too. Her fight never came. The moral of the story is it wasn't as hard as I thought. We had been running. Actually, she didn't even have to get her turn because we fought and they told me, you know what? We don't even want to fight no more. So I'm just telling y'all, I say all that to say sometimes what we scared of, it ain't that hard. So God is saying, just fight, get in the ring and just fight. And so I thank y'all. I thank y'all on tonight for just taking the time out and jumping in on this podcast with me. I pray to God that this has encouraged a lot of people on tonight. Stop running. Yeah, you got problems. Okay, you got problems. Fight. What, right? One fight, all fight, and that's what they meant. It was gonna be the whole family on our, but it was 2 of us and about 10 of them. But yeah, you right. It was one fight, all fight. You right about that. But I'm just telling y'all and to encourage y'all on tonight. Sometimes some of these fights ain't as hard as you think. Once you fight, you gonna say, God, I see how you working on my behalf. God, I see how you moving my enemies. God, I see how you healing my body. God, I see how you regulating my mind. God, I see how you putting my family back together. God said, just because you got in the ring and you didn't run, you got see, sometimes you got to get tired of running and say, I'm just gonna fight. So with that being said, y'all, excuse me, I encourage you all on tonight to just get in the ring and fight. God ain't gonna tell you to fight something and he ain't got your back. See, that's one thing. God says, I got your back. See, like she said, one fight, all fight. God says, if you fight, I'm fighting with you. He said, you ain't by yourself. He says, so don't think you by yourself. If you fight, I fight. So I just encourage you all on tonight. Stop running. Stop running. Stop running. I promise you. I'm looking at people who run, run, run. You know how you run from a situation, but it seemed like it keep coming back. And if it don't come back this week, it come back the next week. And if it don't come back the next week, it come back the next month. And if it don't come back the next month, it give you a couple of years and it come back until God says, listen, just deal with it. Don't run from it no more. God says, if you fight, I fight. If you go to court, I go to court. If you go to the doctor, I go to the doctor. If you go to get the job, I go to the job with you. If you want a promotion, I'm going with you to get the promotion. God says, stop running. If your family in disarray and you want it put back together, I got your back. I'm right behind you. God says, stop running and just fight. So I just encourage each and every person on tonight just to stand. Just to stand and fight. God says, I'm not putting you in a ring by yourself. Notice David was a little bitty boy who was trying to fight a giant. But one thing I do believe is that David knew God had his back. And once he pulled the trigger, God was going to shoot. See, God says, pull a trigger and I'll shoot. God says, pull a sling back and I'm going to shoot the rock. God says, see, you don't realize you really not doing a lot in this fight. You just pulling back. And God says, I'm going to launch something that's going to knock all this stuff down. So with that being said, thank you, thank you, thank you, each and every person who is on this live with me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you all. I pray that this word pricked your heart the way it was supposed to. I pray that somebody got revelation and understanding out of it. And I pray that from this point on, we tell God, God, I'm not running. God, you see me. You know me. You know all this stuff that I got going on in my life. You ain't got to broadcast it to everybody because when you fight somebody, finna get ready to fight somebody, you're not going to tell them every move you about to do. So what you do is you go in your secret place and say, God, listen, I got this and that and that and this, and I'm facing this and I'm facing that. God, listen, you said that you would never leave me or forsake me. You said if I trust in you with all my heart and lean not to my own understanding, acknowledge you in all my ways, and you'll direct your path. God, I'm in a valley right now and it looks real dark and it looks like I'm about to lose my life. But God, you said if I keep coming through, you promised that you will meet me on the other side. You said if you told me to get on the boat, even though I have to fight through the storm, that I was going to make it to the other side. See, God says you have a weapon, and the weapon is his word. So with that being said, y'all, I thank you all again, and I appreciate you all so much for joining in. Nicole Collins, thank you so much for joining in with me on tonight. Rachel, Tamika, Nisi, Taz, Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining in. Yeah, he behind the scene, he clicking them comments and moving and shifting things around. I appreciate him so much because he puts all this stuff together for me. Like I said, I don't do all this, but I do appreciate him because y'all, like I tell y'all all the time, I have that phone in one hand and I just be talking to y'all. That's just how I do it. But I appreciate that he does put all this stuff together for me and him, we got each other back. If it comes to a fight, he know that I got his back. I know that he has my back, and we just gonna fight and we just gonna stand. That's what we gonna do. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you all would be so nice and kind, share this podcast out to someone who may need it and let them know you don't have to run no more. You don't. Face what you got to face. Get in the ring. The fight is already fixed. God says, and you, the opponent in the ring. Matter of fact, God says, I care so much about you. You the one that I'm looking for. Remember, God says, I'm not worried about the 99. I'm worried about that one. God says, I love you so much, and I see that you've been running it, that you've been battling. God says, I love you so much that you the one that I've been looking for. He says, just get in the ring and fight. He said, that's it. He say, it's not as hard as you think. We be thinking this stuff is so hard, and if even if it do get hard, because once David knocked down the giant, now Saul wanted to kill David, but turn around, David runs from Saul, and Saul runs back to David. David had the opportunity to kill Saul, so it might have not been that hard if David wouldn't have ran. I don't know, but Saul planned to kill him. But I'm just saying, but y'all be blessed. Thank you once again. I think I seen Khalil on here. Thank you, Khalil, for joining in. I thought I seen you further up. Thank you for joining in, but I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out. Like I said, if you could go ahead and share out this podcast to someone who may need it. Y'all, it's a lot of people running. You got court cases, you running. God says it's not as hard as you think it is once you face it. So, with that being said, I want y'all to share this podcast out, help it get much reach as possible. Let the people know that God says you the one that I see and I fixed the fight for you. So just get in the ring, just to encourage someone, to let them know that they not by themselves, that God is there with them. So, with that being said, I appreciate you all. That's all I have to say for tonight. And you all have a blessed night. I won't be back on here this week, y'all. But we will be back on here Monday, as always, at 7 o'clock. Real Talk with Frank and Vanessa. That's where me and my husband will be doing it together. But y'all, if God put something else on my heart, I promise you, everything God give me, I'm like a person that I try to give it all away to y'all. Like, listen, listen, listen. This is what God said. And especially if God tell me to tell somebody something, I be like, look, I gotta tell you what God said. I gotta tell you what God said. I gotta tell you what God said. So unless God put something on my heart to give y'all, I'll be on here Monday. But if God gives me something else, I promise y'all, I try to give y'all everything that God gives me. And I go off of not by Vanessa's opinion. I go strictly off the word of God, because God don't need my opinion. My opinion might mess this thing up. I go by directly how God gives it to me. Because one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to be disobedient to God and I'm giving opinion instead of his word, because that's what he performs on, his word. So I thank each and every one of y'all. And with that being said, until Monday, y'all be blessed.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Real Talk with Frank and Vanessa. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of our incredible community. Frank and Vanessa truly appreciate each and every one of you who has been supporting them on this journey. Your engagement, feedback, and love mean the world to them. Before they go, they want to give a special shout out to their amazing supporters. Your generosity keeps the conversations flowing and the episodes coming. If you enjoy what you hear and want to contribute to the continued success of Real Talk, consider making a donation. Every contribution, big or small, goes a long way in helping them bring you more thought-provoking content. You can show your support by sending your donations to their Cash App at $VANLUC. That's VANLUC. And for those using Zelle, you can contribute to loveandtruth034@gmail.com. Your support allows them to invest in better equipment, bring on exciting guests, and continue to deliver the real and unfiltered conversations you love. They're grateful for each contribution,